Live from Seattle, Washington, it's theCUBE, on the ground. Covering KubeCon 2016. Brought to you by the Linux Foundation and Red Hat. Here's your host, John Furrier.
Okay, we are here in Seattle for a special CUBE on the ground coverage of Cloud Native Con and KubeCon, really born out of the KubeCon last year, now called Cloud Native Con. Really great event, dynamic, a lot of developers here. This is where the players are. It's really one of those events that's really special, and we've been here all day, getting ready to get kicked out of the room. The party's going to kick off at 7 o'clock. There's an election going on. The numbers are crazy. And of course, we have the CEO of CoreOS, Alex Polvi, who's here. He's been on the Cube many times. CoreOS, one of the main players in what is the biggest trend of the past few years that has really catapulted cloud and the developers together, certainly in the enterprise and the cloud, is containers and now Kubernetes. Great to see you.
Great to see you, John.
You guys have been in the heart of the battle and part of the growth and the journey. It's been a battle, it's been fun. You have scar tissue, you guys have, Docker's been out there, you guys have been there, you've been at war, you've been friends, it's frenemies. And so in the spirit of growth, this is what's happening in the industry, but more than ever, now you're starting to see an acceleration.
Yep.
An acceleration with Kubernetes as a catalyst. Your thoughts on this trend, because now the container mojo is out there, people get it,
Yep.
they see the value. Now they go, okay, with Kubernetes, this brings me a primitive and an abstraction that I could work with.
Yep.
How is that changing the game right now?
I think we're going through the biggest transformation we've seen in infrastructure since cloud was invented. So, you have it on these cycles, and cloud, while Amazon has been going for, what, 10 years now,
yeah.
Almost, right? And so naturally you'll see things emerge, and what's happening now is this kind of new layer popping out. And containers and distributed systems are, I believe, are the next major area of infrastructure investment beyond cloud itself.
So talk about the open source community role here, because now you're starting to see the open source community get on this. We had Jim Walker, who was on, who works in your team, ex-Hortonworks guy, knows the big data space, seen that movie before, commenting that most of the people born after 2000 don't even know what loading Linux on a machine is, that they're born cloud native. And so this is a new dynamic. The cloud gives more options for invention, a theme we're hearing here, solving these unknown problems, creating value. So whoever can give me the best speedboat to that wins, right? I mean, this is what we're seeing. Your thoughts on the community's role in propelling and keeping in check, by the way, any potentially bad behavior?
Sure. I think the open source community that we have around Kubernetes and kind of all the cloud native work is great for a number of reasons. One, we've kind of through Cloud Native Computing Foundation and kind of just a conscious effort to have really a kind of company neutral open source ecosystem has caused an adoption of all this stuff. It's becoming like a Linux, or becoming. I think OpenStack has actually did a pretty good job of this, of creating a very vendor neutral kind of ecosystem around it, and we're doing it again around Kubernetes and the associated projects around it. One of the big things that's going on here is it is driven out of the spirit of technical excellence as well. Like, these open source projects are the real deal. They're great pieces of software that are being built. So I think the combination of this community, as well as like software actually being a great piece of technology coming out of it, is really going to propel it forward.
We had Dan Kahn earlier, who's the executive director. He talked about the IETF and how that was shaped some of the early internet standards. We looked at some of the architectural decisions. There was no dogma. I mean, dogma kills communities.
Right.
And they don't want that. So they're going to create a separation. There's always going to be dogma at some level. It's conflict, but discourse is good in communities at some level.
Yeah.
What is that vision for the technical excellence now? Because it certainly is a race. Your thoughts there, and certainly we've seen this playbook when Docker has trying to go for that management orchestration layer. You guys have a strategy. People have to make money. Right. At some point, the playbooks have to change from being we do service and support. We have an open core, and we're going to try to do some mangling of licensing. Your thoughts on how people are going to make money?
Yeah, I mean, so on this open community side of things, I have a crazy theory for you, and I think this one's a little bit further out.
That's okay. Still, things are happening on the election that I blew my mind. I thought Hillary's going to win by a landslide. Go crazy.
So Amazon has actually become both one of the biggest proponents of open source software. It's one of the places where you can get, open source databases and open source Linux and all this stuff as easily as possible. At the same time, if you're an open source company, they're one of your like biggest threats because you're worried that Amazon is just going to like go build your service. I mean, look, we've seen it across every open source company that has any reasonable amount of traction. Amazon will just go build a service that competes with it. Now, the tricky thing with Amazon is all their APIs and management are very Amazon specific, and there aren't ways to get it in other ways. And we've kind of seen this game before, similar to how, you know, there's Microsoft and Windows with Linux. I believe that Amazon might be kind of becoming such a powerhouse and so dominated in this space that you're going to almost see an open source backlash around it. And I could see Kubernetes being a key part of that. In the same way that we talk about Kubernetes as a you know, a Linux for the distributed system, it's, you know, in a way like an open cloud. You know, it's allows you to build these cloud services in a similar way that Amazon has these higher level services that work in any environment, that are built around open standards, that encourage the use of just upstream open source projects. And so far, like, Amazon has not really been villainized at all, and I don't think they should be. I think they've done amazing things.
And they're not grandstanding, so I think they're kind of bunkering in, just
going for
squirreling away all
this.
Keep it going.
It's like, keep ripping.
Why even say anything? You're kicking ass.
Exactly.
You know, put the heat shield up and just drive fast.
I
Right?
feel like at some point the community is going to be like, wait a minute, we have so many eggs in
we're
this
feeling
basket.
fleeced. The numbers are out there,
and it's a proprietary.
Well, first of all, Dave
thing,
Vellante pointed out that their 25% reporting of was GAAP. The non-GAAP numbers are even higher.
Right.
So that's real profit. That's real EBITDA. So that are they giving it back to the community? That's your question. So I think the backlash is not only giving back to the community with either wealth creation and ecosystem flourishing, but you're talking about software.
I think it's a cycle. Like, people want something new to emerge, but at the same time, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. So, you know, it's cycles.
Well, I think your thing is plausible. Let's just go down and play out your crazy scenario. So Linux was started because of the mini computer, proprietary Gnosis, and the expensive hardware. Mm-hmm. So if Amazon becomes that version of that 800-pound gorilla that's similar to the mini computer proprietary network operating systems and gear. Mm-hmm. So it's a scenario.
Not too wild.
Okay, so what's next for you guys? Give us the update on CoreOS. What are you guys doing? What's the hot area? What are you guys doing? What's the update real quick?
Sure. So the last 3.5 years, we've been shepherding along this whole space: containers, distributed system, Kubernetes, Docker, Rocket, CoreOS, Linux, like all sorts of stuff. We finally got to the point where, like, our initial kind of groundwork of the distributed platform is all in place, and we can start using it. It's like we got iOS or Android to boot, and now we can, like, start building apps. And last week we released our first set of apps that I think really paint the vision of where these things are going. It's this concept called operators, and it's where we're encoding kind of the operational side of like the things a human sysadmin would do to run a piece of open source software. We're encoding that into an application, and it's called an operator, and it can do things like upgrade a cluster or back it up or scale it up and down. Same things that operator today, like an agent, exactly. And it's these management components that we think are going to give companies a ton of leverage to be able to run lots of
So when
lots
did you
of
guys ship
infrastructure.
this recently?
Yeah, we shipped our first couple, one for etcd and then one for Prometheus last week. It's just their new open source
So
projects.
it's like getting a new car and taking it around the track, right? You guys are getting excited.
Well, in a way, we're calling this kind of whole concept self-driving infrastructure. Just like you would have an operator sitting there driving your car, you know, we can now put software in there to kind of help take care of the stuff, the functionality that an operator would do to give them
I think
time
that's
to keep moving.
great strategy. We were just at IBM's World of Watson, and obviously they changed their event from Insight to Watson. That's the big hype. Customers are responding to it. They love this cognitive AI vision of self-driving infrastructure, or stuff taking care of itself and focusing on value. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the weeds right now that seems to be automatable.
Yeah, look, 2 weeks ago we had 2 huge vulnerabilities come out, one on the Linux kernel and one on Kubernetes, and every ops team in the world had to drop what they were doing and go fix that, and they stopped making progress on their business and whatever thing they were trying to deliver and had to go deal with this fire. We can write programs to fix that stuff, and we should, and it'll lead to a more efficient business, and it'll also lead to a more secure web in general if those things just get patched and updated automatically.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good crime. And the DDoS attack with the IoT was even more pedestrian and worse than
the same issue. Update your software IoT, like updates.
I think it was probably some 8-year-old saying, "Ooh, let's just take down. Oh, that's the passwords open," and it just came in. I mean, that's how easy that hack was.
Yeah.
I mean, and still penetrates. So tons of work to get done. To your point.
Yes.
Alex, thanks for coming on theCUBE here on the ground. That's a wrap here for today. It was a long day. Great to see you, and congratulations on your success. I'm John Furrier. You're watching theCUBE on the ground here for KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. Thanks for watching.